Hello and welcome to Inside News. This is Dale Matthews, and I'm joined by Mike Jones, who is ready. Are you ready, Mike?
Yes, I am. I am ready. I am
And
ready
our listeners, viewers, and etc., our transcribers are they're ready as well. And hello, the government agents. Hello, nice that you're monitoring this. When you register to run for an office like county commissioner, there are certain numbers that you need to keep in mind, deadlines and such things, but also reporting numbers, because you're required to say who's financing you above a certain amount.
Mm-hmm.
And the first number that you're confronted with is $50 at the front desk of the clerk's office, Tricia Myers, a vast improvement over our old clerk. And you put in $50, and they want you to write up a little statement about yourself, about what your schooling is and things like that. And you get to submit a picture if you wish to. At that time you can, or a little bit later. And so it's interesting to me that one of the candidates, Mark Kelsey, who was not doing anything at all. Remember, he's the guy that said that he was going to help recall Simon Hare, and then collected a bunch of names and phone numbers and stuff, and then hung on to all of them and didn't turn any of them into anybody.
Yeah.
I'm not happy about that, but okay. He registered to run, and he never unregistered, so he's on the ballot. And he paid his $50, and then he ended up with nothing in the voters pamphlet, as I recall. Then there's another fellow, Shayne Christen, and Shayne put in the $50, did not submit any kind of photo, and he has a little summary statement about himself. The little, what's your education, and nothing else. The mystery of all
all of these things, of course, people are free to do.
Yes, you kind of wonder. Really? Okay. And then Toni Webb, this is the most mysterious to me of all. She registered to run, and then didn't submit a picture, and didn't want any information about herself in the voters pamphlet. Now, let's state that a little more clearly. When Shayne Christen put in his information to be listed in the voters pamphlet, he just filled out that initial thing that you're supposed to fill out for $50. Okay, you're supposed to fill it out. And it says your educational background, your name, and stuff like that. When Toni Webb put in her $50, apparently she didn't want to be listed at all in the voters pamphlet.
Yeah, that's weird. I have to believe that was an oversight, because she has since, popped up out of nowhere. I think the first time that I saw her at a candidate event, and we've been to really most of them, was one
my shoulder here. You can see, we've covered all of them and put them out there for you to see. So you're an educated consumer.
Right. Now, there was some private situations, like they had something up in Sunny Valley, and they do you talk in front of a private group or whatever. Those we didn't go to. However, the first time that I saw Toni Webb show up at any one of these forums was the Merlin forum, and then she's been at the subsequent forums after that. But before that, we were almost under the impression that this gal just thought better of the idea and was pulling it out, wasn't running. But then it was odd because, and it was odd because, during this time of having dipped out of sight, there were ads with information about her in the sneak preview. And I thought, okay, well, that's
weird. And I know she was invited to one of the candidates forums that we covered, the very first one at the Black Bear Diner, because they said, well, she's going to come. Oh, really? Great. And then at the last moment, she pulled out. Well, certainly her prerogative. It's not illegal.
Yeah.
It's just Strange
Yeah,
to me.
it's but you know, as we have said here, it's your prerogative. Do whatever you want to.
So when we're looking at people's choices of what they want to do and don't want to do, when you first register, it costs you $50, and then it's going to cost you another $300 to put at this moment, to put your statement in the voter's pamphlet. That's $350. Then you are supposed to tell the state, I anticipate I will not spend more than $750. That's the initial $350 plus another $400 at all. As a fiscal conservative, I'm one of the people that said, no, I don't anticipate I'm going to be spending any more than that. And there are some other people, and at any time, if you go over 751, then you can file an amended thing with the state. And what's the entire reason for, Mike, please, for telling anybody at all where your money's coming from?
Oh, well, I mean, I don't know what they think the reasoning is, but certainly what I think and what you should think is the reason for wanting to know these things is that you want to know who's influencing the people that you're about to vote on. And then listen, you can easily extrapolate that if some particular interest is donating to a particular candidate, that they are going to want something from that. Listen, and we all know that this is how politics works for the most part. If you're one of those people who's getting heavily funded by a particular person or organization, that person or organization is going to expect things from you. And you can pretty well expect, when you see the name, that some sort of business is being done in that area, in which they will later call in their marker.
This is why I brought up in the past, I'm not running against Lily Morgan. This is why I brought up in the past, I like Lily. And she said, well, I'm not going to vote for higher property taxes, except all of her biggest contributors and supporters and stuff are all super. When I say super, I mean like right out in the lead, like Roy Lindsay kind of folks, saying we really, 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 really want to have higher property taxes, even if it means forcing it on people. And when you've got support like that, you can continue to say, well, that means nothing to me. Yeah, well, it must mean something to them.
Yeah, and to be honest, we both Dale and I got an email from Jim at We're for a Constitutional Government. Thank you very much, Jim, for sending us those links. And I didn't get a chance to look at any of them, and Dale looked at some of them. So, are you saying that you have been to the thing about her and you see that?
I have not yet. I will get there.
Oh.
What tonight's show is about is more about Keith Heck than about anybody else, because honestly, the two of us feel much more comfortable talking about someone that's in office than we do about other candidates for obvious reasons.
Well, and we already know, and I think most of the people watching, I hope most of the people watching this program can be in agreement about, is that everybody that we have in there now is somebody that we need to get rid of and replace with somebody hopefully better and at least new.
Yeah, right. So when Keith Heck, who is infamous for saying, I know we're breaking the law and I don't care. And then, oh, well, we haven't been found guilty by the state of anything. And it turns out at that moment, yes, he was. And he knew that he was. Was somebody to look you straight in the eye and say, we've not been found guilty, and they have been found guilty. You would think, some people would think, that he would be more careful as an incumbent and as somebody that's been caught red-handed several times by us and by others, that he'd be more careful in reporting correctly to the state. But he wasn't. And so what James Rafferty over at We're for a Constitutional Government did is, because we can't do everything, I've been just a little too conservative on some things that I do as far as eating and energy and that kind of stuff. And the doctor said, Dale. So, okay, I've been too much of a fiscal conservative and other kinds of conservative. So I'm eating a little more fat, that kind of stuff.
I don't equate conservatism with starving yourself to death. That is
okay, well, that wasn't my intention.
Yes,
okay. I had no margin for error.
I don't miss a whole lot of meals, and I'm pretty conservative.
I'm making up for it, buddy. I'm making up for it now. So,
okay, that's good.
Are you having an affair with that woman? Not at the moment. I'm on the stand, so I'm not making up for it right now, but I am making up for it. It'll all turn out okay. So, he was breaking the law. Keith Heck was breaking the law because Jim Rafferty found out that he was, and he turned him in. And after being turned in, then Keith Heck decided maybe it was better to actually obey the law.
Well, when you know somebody's watching, it's a lot easier to do the right thing, I guess, for some.
But integrity is you do the right thing even when nobody's watching.
Of course. But, listen, we're not breaking news here.
No, we're not. Okay, so not these days because we're future-proofing all of you. So, okay, so he was breaking the law. James Rafferty, at We're for a Constitutional Government, caught him and turned him in. So now we're going to talk about CCOs. What? Yeah. Coordinated care organizations. Why? Because these are the biggest contributors to Keith Heck's campaign, that he was doing one of two things. One is he really didn't care about the law, or two, potentially, he didn't want people to know that the biggest CCO in Oregon was dedicating money to him. The biggest what? Okay, all right. The Coalition for a Healthy Oregon is made up of healthcare organizations. Yes, Coalition for a Healthy Oregon. And at the beginning, you might think, are they against GMOs? I mean, what is Coalition for a Healthy Oregon? Mike's looked a little bit into this, but he also has a couple of names of local organizations that belong to the Coalition for a Healthy Oregon. And tell us a little bit about that if you can, Mike. You don't have to.
Well, and to be honest, I haven't looked into that, but I am assuming that this is that part of this organization are like Options and All Care, which are involved in the healthcare part of some of the normal. County used to be involved in things like mental health and a number of healthcare services, and now that's all being subbed out to private companies like All Care and Options. And I'm wondering, what is it? Listen, what is the impetus for a business like that to be contributing to somebody like Keith Heck unless they are going to have some sort of business before him? And I also speculated that it's possible that he may just be a name on a list where this organization does a lot of political contributions, and that somebody somewhere, probably in Salem, says, hey, listen, we need to take care of all the people on this list, Keith Heck being among them. I don't know how that works out, but listen, obviously companies that make political contributions are expecting some sort of quid pro quo for that. And so I don't know what that is. I'm very interested to know what that possibly could be with Keith Heck. But I have heard him speak glowingly of these local organizations, All Care and Options, and ditto Cheryl Walker, and I think to some degree even Simon Harriet.
I believe so. So, okay, so what's their involvement in this? Now, at the first, it looks like it's completely benign until you think about it just a little bit more. Our county health department, they say, doesn't have much oomph behind it, and they're barely making it, according to Cheryl Walker. And they couldn't get anything done at all if it wasn't for All Care. What? Really? Our county health department? So All Care is a coordinated care organization, a CCO. It's a new kind of entity, which is, it seems to me, sort of semi-governmental, quasi-private enterprise, where they're encouraged to take part of their profits, because they're a private company, and put that into some other kind of organization to help them out. They're required to do so. So when you hear that a CCO, a local CCO, is helping fund some of the healthcare services that are put on by the county, now think about it for a second. What private enterprise would do that out of the goodness of their heart and just for altruistic reasons?
No, that isn't it at all. These guys, what possible motivation would there be for a company that, well, we're going to come in, we're going to pay for all your health care that fits into this little category? Of course not. They're getting state subsidies to do that. And they're making a profit at it. They're not, listen, and this is funny because when Dale was talking about how Cheryl Walker had talked about All Care before, it makes it sound as like, oh, what a charitable organization. They're doing this out of the goodness of their own heart. Isn't that wonderful? They're not doing that. These people are making a profit here. Have you seen their buildings? You don't build those in every county in the state, probably. You don't do that out of the goodness of your own heart. I mean, unless maybe Bill Gates is funding them or something like that. That isn't what's going on here. These people are we are paying taxes that ultimately are looping back and coming into these people's pockets for services that used to be part of county government.
So one of the things that we've mentioned many times in this show, because you're all investigative journalists now, okay, you've all been recruited. Whenever you're at a meeting with the camera and me, and you look at something and go, that's interesting. Wait a minute. Why are they doing that? That's the point at which you need to follow the money. And so when we hear that All Care is involved in seeing that the county gets money to do certain kind of health services, there's a reason they're doing that, and the reason they're doing that is they're required to do that in order to be able to get other grants and et cetera from the state. Okay, and so one could say, well, while they don't say that, and nobody ever says that, we're the only ones that are saying that. You're not going to see that in the Courier. You're not going to hear that on KJO. You're going to hear it here. They're required to do so. They're required to do so. Okay, even if they are, they could say, well, we're doing this thing, okay, and it's a good thing. Okay. And we're required to do this thing. Okay. And we're going to do it. Fine. And therefore, we're going to give money to local politicians to be sure that they will still think of it as a good thing.
Yeah, and this, see, there's always this missing link in all this stuff. Like, why is the Board of County Commissioners so dead set on this against this, using some of the road funds for the sheriff, even though it was a windfall that they never ever expected. They thought they were going to get 51,000, and instead they got $1 million, and so you wonder, what is the motivation? And it's the same thing with this. It's like, what? There is some piece of missing information, and unfortunately, yet again, here we have nothing but supposition.
Yeah, but these are pretty good questions. Like, yes. Okay, let's go back, and now you're one of the people. You're working for All Care. You're working for a CCO, and you start a political action committee. You do? Really? And this political action committee gives money to, here's a very interesting list of people: John Kitzhofer, Kate Brown, the current governor, bunches of money, bundles of money. Alan Bates, Peter Buckley, Tina Kotek, Jeff Merkley, Peter Buckley. Let me just say that name again, okay? So, and Keith Heck. And Keith Heck.
Yeah, bizarre.
That's an interesting group of people that are pulled together.
Yeah, I agree.
Peter Buckley, Alan Bates, and Keith Heck.
Yeah.
Now, and so you're appearing before your board, and you're saying, we certainly want to be able to continue to do this wonderful service for counties. Okay. And we want to be sure that nobody there objects. Objects? Why would anybody object? So let's give money to Keith Heck. What? What? Why would you want to or need to give money to a county commissioner in Josephine County that's just pulling this wonderful thing in? Where's the possible objection, and what can he possibly do to screw it up? And why would he?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, Mike's going to put up an email, and maybe you've got a hint because you're our investigative journalist, right? Would you please send us an email explaining what in the world is going on? Here's Mike, and he's putting up this thing. And if you think you've got an idea, beyond mere conspiracy theory, which we can handle quite nicely on our own,
yes.
Thank you. Please tell us why would you give money to Keith Heck?
Yeah, I'm wondering. Somebody has to know. I mean, it's somebody in the area has to know why is it that this organization gives money to Keith Heck, and I mean, as Dale pointed out, there's a long list. I believe that he is chunked into a list of people that they throw money at, and there's an arrangement there. But you know what?
But who in Salem wants Keith Heck to get the money?
Okay, but yes, and here's an interesting thing. A lot of the people on that list are Democrats.
Yeah, Alan Bates, Peter Buckley.
Yeah, Keith, Jeff Merkley, Kate Brown. But here's the deal. Keith Heck is a Republican.
Is he?
Yeah, his picture's on the wall over at Republican headquarters.
He's a tax and spend Republican.
Yeah, he's one of those. He's, there's a minority in our local Republican Party here that are like that, and he's clearly one of. This is bizarre. It really, really odd. How
can he possibly help them, Mike? We talked a little bit about this before the show. I said, let's think about this. How can he hurt them? How can he possibly help them? We already know how he can hurt the county. He's a sitting commissioner, so it's all right to talk about him. Right. But how can he possibly help them?
Yeah, somebody has the answer to that question, and I guess there's kind of an even mix of both Democrats and Republicans on that list. But obviously, there's a reason why they're donating to those people, and they're expecting something in return, I would imagine. And I just wonder, what is the return? I don't want to hire anybody who's beholden to interests of any kind. I would like to have people be in there and be able to be objectively who they are, and who they represent themselves to be when they ran. And
there's only a couple of candidates that have said the following: whatever money you put into my campaign will be returned to you. No, you don't have to do that. Oh, yes. No, but you don't have to. Oh, yes. Whatever money you put into the campaign will be returned to you, every dime. Yeah, but I would like special access. You'll get the same access as everybody else, but I want special access. No, you cannot buy that.
You know what? I mean, I could see something that would inspire me to donate to a campaign, and that would be a set of principles or an ideology that I know is going to take them in a direction that I want to go. That's what motivates me to support, not to influence, not to change the direction of that person. I think we need people that already have, this is who I am. Look at me. I'm an open book. I'm telling you who I am. I'm going to do this. And people go, yeah, I want a piece of that.
You all remember the Black Bear thing that we were at, where Keith Heck unfortunately got confused. And that's another story. And he started talking about Andreas Bleck and what a great deal Andreas Bleck has as a private enterprise person to dig up gravel in Sunny Valley, and how Andreas Bleck is right in what he's saying. Now, unfortunately for Keith and for the county, he shouldn't have said that, because he was thinking of another case where it was already done, and this case is not done, and now Keith won't be able to speak at all about this, won't be part of the voting process, because their lawyers will say, you've already, not perjured yourself, but you've already shown a bias, and he's now aced himself out of this. But of course, and I understand why, Andreas Bleck is one of the contributors to Keith Heck's campaign.
Okay.
All right. Well, yeah, he wants that kind of person in there. Not to mine, but to Keith's. Yeah, Keith took a stand. He took an illegal stand, but he took a stand. Now, in this case, speaking of illegality, so Mike, what do you think? I see two possibilities, maybe there are a dozen, but I see two possibilities of why Keith would not report this bunch of money coming in from the, what's it called, Coalition for a Healthy Oregon. Mm-hmm. One is, he has already stated, I know we're breaking the law and I don't care, and maybe he's just following that motto. Or two, he doesn't want people to know that he's getting money from Coalition for a Healthy Oregon.
Yeah, or he's a lunkhead, and listen, it's entirely possible. If you've watched Keith Heck over the past couple of years, and seen video clips of him, it isn't a stretch to say that here's a guy who probably doesn't think that the rules apply to him. He's arrogant, and he's above everybody else. He's condescending to nearly everybody unless they're kissing his rear end. This is not. I just think he probably thought, well, no one's going to be looking at this. It's,
nobody's going to be looking at this. Right. Nobody? Really? I mean, have you ever heard of this show, if nothing else? And we didn't even do this one.
Yeah.
It was James Rafferty. Well, thanks, James, for looking into it. Yeah, we're looking into this stuff, and we're being careful. So it's super simple. If $750, so I spent less than $400 more than putting the thing in the voters pamphlet. You don't see a bunch of signs from me. I'm a fiscal conservative. So you're not going to see some huge billboard thing with all these huge signs all stuck up together. And Mike has an example, okay, God bless her. Here's this example that Mike has for us about what came out recently.
Well, and this was this came to me in the mail. It struck me as wow.
That's a lot of money.
Well, and it's not illegal to do this.
No,
to send these out, but this is two sides, and the two sides are different. It's on card stock kind of material. This
every voter.
Yeah, and I don't know that it went to every voter. Maybe it did. If it did, or maybe there's a targeted audience for this, because I don't know if people in the city got this. And maybe she would think, well, okay, I got the city locked up. Let's concentrate on the county people. There's obviously a strategy involved in all of this, but in any event, this costs a lot of money. If you're if this costs a quarter, it costs several bucks just to do my street. And that's and if you're talking to every mailbox in the county, that is big money.
So I got questions for you. Now, we're not jumping all over every candidate, and we've already said why. I've said why. Does that huge billboard assembly at Parkway, right? And this, as a mailer, does that scream out to you fiscal conservative?
Well, it certainly could. I mean, it depends on who's. Listen, if I wanted to give $1 million to a local candidate here and say, I want you to blow this all out on your campaign, there's nothing wrong with that. I can do that.
No, I'm not saying it's illegal.
And I can do that as a fiscal conservative. That would not be very fiscally conservative of me, but perhaps but perhaps I liked the guy's morality. I liked his principles. I liked his core, and I thought that would be good. And ultimately going forward, and I'm doing this as what I think is a public service. Certainly, there are. That's why this stuff kind of gets muddy.
Yes.
Because, you can have, let's say 100 people donated $100 a piece to somebody's campaign, to try, and they thought, okay, I'm going to blow this whole thing out on a billboard on the corner of Parkway and M. I don't know what's going on there, but if there may be one person paying for that or 100 people. I don't know. I don't even care. But the point is that it's either good, bad, or indifferent, depending on who's doing it and what they're expecting. That's why I wanted to get the information about who was doing this. And you know what? Maybe Jim is going to post this on w4acg.com. I believe that's what it is. Is it .com or .org?
Something like that, yeah, right.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, and maybe you can go there and look at the stuff yourself, or maybe in the, that's what I'll do in the contents in the the area down there of this YouTube video, right. The see more area, the information area. I'll put all the links so that you guys can look in there and check it out yourself.
That's a real good idea, because what we want you to do is find out who's filed what. Now, I haven't needed to do so because I think of myself as a fiscal conservative, and I'm going to hold back and just do certain things and not do other things. So a little too much in one area, but I'm working on that. So, it's well, the non-news part of this story is that Keith Eck's been breaking the law again, and he had to be called on it before he was forced to do something about it. And we can thank some of our local citizens for doing so. And we've probably seen the end of things that are quite so blatant. Then the question is, are we going to see this creeping back in with city influence or this influence or that influence or people who have feet of clay and aren't going to really stick by what they've said? I don't know. I was really surprised when a couple of people signed that letter saying, Governor, we don't want you to come in and take over. Almost everybody was surprised. They said, Dan DeYoung signed that? He did? Lily Morgan signed that? She did? They didn't expect that. Nobody expected that. So
yeah, and we haven't heard anything about that in quite some time now, have we?
No, we're not going to hear anything about that. Come on.
Yeah.
I figured that probably went straight to David Green, who is the assistant to the governor, and nobody gets anything past David Green to the governor. That's it. I mean, that guy's got some kind of attitude. The first time I talked with that guy about a problem is he said, well, so what's your problem with this? And I said, well, it's illegal. He says, well, knock yourself out. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can seal yourself off from the public if you want to, but maybe not if there's people in there that are, commissioners. That's a possibility. But we'll just have to see how things shake out, because there are obvious pairings. People who are paired up that are running for government, running for office here locally, and you've got some choices to make here about guaranteeing that you're going to get what you want in votes, versus taking a chance. It's all about what you're willing to chance. I'm not, and I'm increasingly getting to the point where I'm not very patient with people who are wishy-washy about stuff. Maybe you are. I'd prefer non-wishy-washy candidates myself. People who will say things like, I'm in favor of economic prosperity. Oh, let me write this down. I'm very interested in public safety. Ooh, another good one. And what's the third one? Economic prosperity. Oh, transparency. I am the champion of transparency. And you look at what they do in their everyday life, and no, they're not.
Yeah, well, listen.
That's not what they do.
Show me transparency. That's, I mean, when you get in there, show me transparency. I don't want to hear you talk about transparency. Don't even give lip service to transparency. Just give me transparency.
Yeah, but waiting till they're in there and then having to wait for 4 years, we just did that. And so these are people who said, well, I promise to be transparent, and I'm going to be out there promoting financial prosperity in our area. They've done anything but that. So I think what you need to do is you need to look at what that person's been doing. And if you've never heard of them before, it's a warning signal. Or if you've heard of them and you haven't noticed them being particularly transparent, that's another one. And a third one is if there are things they don't want to talk about, and you know who I'm talking about, there are a couple of candidates who do not want you to talk about certain subjects. This is a warning signal. And then there are people out there who are painfully transparent and telling you stuff all the time and taking those risks. Well, that's a little different. But if you're getting the same old political speeches from them by watching these shows, and it's the same thing over and over and over again, that's a warning. That's my opinion.
Or, see, I have a problem with this when it comes to campaigning, because it's, you're engaged in a popularity contest.
That's right.
And none of that has anything to do with the job that you're going to do. And this regurgitation of this message that, I want to make sure that I'm flogging this message over and over and over and over. To me, because of the fact that, I'm a political junkie, so I follow these guys around. I hear all of what they have to say. And I got to tell you, I start falling flat on candidates when I've heard their spiel twice.
Yeah.
When I hear it 47 times, I'm like, holy moly, love you, babe, but for crying out loud, get some new material.
Absolutely. So you can't expect that any of the other candidates, anybody at all in politics, is going to be risking stuff on a daily basis like Mike and I do. You just can't expect that. And you can't expect that people who come to the weekly business session again and again and again, and they put it out, they put themselves on the line every single time, they get ridiculed by the current commissioners, that's going to stop. You can't expect people to do that on a weekly basis. And sometimes you can't even expect people to show up at meetings and you suddenly, oh, I've been here all along. No, you haven't. I've been here and you have not been here all along. So you can't really expect all of those things. But it's an indication that someone is kind of interested in some of those issues and at least cares enough to get up, and you might even disagree with them about some stuff, but at least they put it out there on the line, and that's completely different than someone who comes in and says, I've got fresh ideas, and I'm not telling you what they are yet. What?
Yeah, and I'm a little bothered when people are telling you things which are supposed to represent what it is that they are planning to do, and if it's too prepared and it's something that you cannot tell somebody off the cuff, then how much of you is this reflecting? Now,
my heartfelt feeling is flip.
Yes, right. Yes. Wait, I can't find it. Where did I write that?
My heartfelt feeling is that I'm a fiscal conservative.
Yes. So now, the further up the line you get, state, federal, whatever, you're going to get more and more of that, because these people have handlers that are trying to channel them in a certain direction and say, listen, for your purpose of your messaging, you have to hit point A, B, C, D, and keep hammering this stuff over and over and over. And, that's very, very difficult. I'm not saying that you cannot be a good candidate for the job and still have one of these boring presentations. You absolutely can. But what comes off more genuine to me, and I think this is the difference, and if you want to reference Donald Trump, again, disclaimer, I'm not a Trump guy. And you know what? I face a lot. I'm sorry if there are people that are for Trump that are watching this. I just find that I can't get on board with cult of personality. I can't make an emotional connection. I have to make an analytical connection to a candidate. They have to convince me based on both their past actions and based on the things that they say, that they're is a general likelihood that we're going to arrive at point B, which is where we want to be. Now, this is a difficult thing for candidates to get out there and do that sort of thing. But I understand the appeal with him is that every single time he's at a different venue, he just gets up in there. Hey, how you doing? Hey, it's a nice hat you're wearing. And then he does a monologue for an hour off the top of his head, and it's completely original. I mean, he's hitting some of the same stuff and he says some of the same stuff, but it's never in the same way. You watch some of these other candidates, it's exactly the same. They either have the speech memorized or they're reading it off a teleprompter. So it's the same presentation every time with maybe slight variations to fit the audience that they're in front of. So I get that that's a refreshing thing, that this guy is not the same as everybody else. It doesn't mean that I'm going to buy into what he's selling, but it's I totally get the appeal, you're taking a big risk when you go out and even talk about this. Some of the people that like me on here might not like me because I'm not supporting their candidate. I hope that's not the case.
And the other thing is,
I have plenty of friends that are Trump supporters, and we manage to get along, even though we think that exactly.
You certainly have noticed that Mike and I are like ice skaters these days. I mean, I've compared local politics to a combination of boxing and chess. It is, but we're like ice skaters these days, and that what we're trying to do is we're trying to, we obviously have opinions about what kind of leadership is needed to make a change. Just saying that a change is necessary is taking a big stand, which crosses out half of the candidates. A change. Okay, so, or somebody that could do the job that's not going to take 9 months to learn the job. Okay, which, sounds like the sheriff's thing about deputies. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to say certain things and not say certain things. That we know, but we're not telling you that stuff. And we're hoping, especially this audience, certainly is the case in almost all of our viewers, are bright enough to say, I feel real uncomfortable with that guy. Hopefully it's not me, but I feel real uncomfortable with that guy. There's a reason for that, but we're not telling you what the reason is, are we, Mike?
Well, I especially am trying to, walk a fine line here to try to be objective to some degree. And listen, everybody is political. Even people that are apolitical people, they're political too. But it's just, you have certain issues that are your pet issues, and the people that are carrying that issue, or maybe your issue is that you just like good-looking people. So you leaf through the voters pamphlet and you go, oh, look at that person, very attractive. I'm voting for him or her or whatever. So
guy looks like Ray Walston. Pass on by. I understand that, of course.
I don't know who that is, but
whatever. Oh, that's my favorite Martian, or Mr. Hand from Fast Times.
Okay.
Yeah,
right. Exactly.
Occasionally, I'm compared to that. Okay,
but the point is that I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm just trying to point to certain things, and I believe that the people that are watching this program are smart people, and that they can do their own homework there. I bet you we could probably, if we could pull one of these people in and have them on the program for a few minutes, they would probably be talking right on the same level as we are in this stuff. If they're following this stuff, they know what's going on. And so bottom line is they don't need to be handheld by me or influenced.
No. And you've got intuition, okay? You're going to have it this time around, because while we comment about everything, we're not doing it this time. But there are certain candidates, and you already know who they are. You know they don't want to talk about certain issues. And there's a reason that they don't want to do that. And so if you're looking at this and you're going, that's really interesting. That's how we started. If that person just gives you a kind of a strange feeling, there's a reason for that. We can't help you past that point. Yeah. All we can do is just say, look at these things. You'll see it. It's blaring. And you probably already know it. And when you see it, you go, yeah, that just doesn't add up. It doesn't. This is a really important election this time. And then the next big one that's coming up, mayor. Oh, brother. Of both Scave Junction and Grants Pass, and city councilors. Yeah, that is a big deal. Now, do the city councilors, does that work in exactly the same way? It must, because I didn't see any city councilors on the ballot there. So they must just, they go straight to the November general election. Wow. That's weird. I think so. There's big choices, and Mike and I have talked a lot about the influence of the city council members that they have on county politics, and many times the things that they say, the policies that they adopt, especially this thing about we can revoke your vote. This is having an effect on the county as well. Mm-hmm. I wonder how much, how much leeway, how much time are we going to have? How long in advance of that election do we know who these people are? When do they file? When did they begin running? I'm not all that familiar with what goes on in the city there, but that's very, very important. These no-pay jobs. Who wants to run for them? Yeah, why? Right. Run for them. Well, as a stepping stone, we know that. Yeah, we've already seen it. Now, I'm saying I'm going to obey the local constitution, the charter, and Ray Smith has said the same thing. But there's no other candidates that are going to take less than the maximum amount. Of course, they're going to take the maximum amount, because that's why. So that's a different thing. That's a paycheck where they'll eventually learn on the job at your expense in order how to do this thing. Okay, that's one. But the city councilors, they will come in immediately and start making new decisions about another water plant and 10 water plants and another sales tax or whatever. All of this signs stuff pasted all over town that you don't want there, and you told them you don't want there, and they're going to do it anyway. Well, just think of what a sales tax in the city of Grants Pass, how that would have affected the economy of the entire county. Well, and even more, the ripple effect of the rest of the state. Yeah. Well, right. Exactly. Yes. As a precedent. Yeah, this is so it is very important, who gets in there and who's influencing them. I think that if you get rid of a few of the kingpin type people, Mayor Fowler got to go. Oh, brother, this guy, in my estimation, start to say goodbye to him and a couple others. Well. It's the same city council that's always rubber stamped everything in the past. The same people, all of them the same people. Some of them now running for different positions that rubber stamped stuff in the past. Okay, with maybe one exception. That's a very important exception, but rubber stamp stuff. So you have lots of choices. Maybe we don't even know if anyone's going to challenge any of them. And I predict that at least one of the city councilors won't be up against any kind of opposition at all. That you, if you live in the city, could take away that position simply by running and being an alternative. That's the only reason I ran in the past. I'm not a crazy running fool. I'm running because nobody else was running. Well, I don't like that in America. There ought to at least be one choice. One choice.
Yeah. I was disappointed to open up the ballot and see like Connie Roach unopposed. You got a number of people in there that were running that were unopposed, and it's like, Herman Berchiger, Carl Wilson, they were both running unopposed. And listen, I've said favorable things about Carl Wilson in the past. Because of what he said at this Lipsick meeting and things like that. But it bothers me when any of these people are running unopposed, because what that means is that you don't have a choice. That person is going back to that office.
Well, you do have a choice now, this time, where it counts, but it's going to take so much time to try to reverse some of these things. It's really a big headache. But we're going to take on part of the headache. We're going to continue talking. Win or lose, we'll still do this show. Win or lose, we'll still, whether I win or lose, not Mike, we'll still do the show. Can you imagine?
If I lose, I promise to still do the show as well.
Yes, absolutely. Still do the show.
Win. Yes.
Think of all the information we'd have to bring to this show. It'd be from inside. Yay. Absolutely. Well, okay, thank you for joining us again. I thought that we just sort of needed a little break from the Budget Committee, but we're going to look more at the Budget Committee and then also at other things that are happening and people who spoke up at the Budget Committee. Yeah. Glad to see that they did that.
Right. We haven't even got to the public comment portion of that.
We haven't.
Of that little program, which I think is pretty good.
It's not boring, okay? But we wanted to talk about something just a little bit different tonight. Follow the money. Good night.